as if waiting for something to happen. Well, tell the sickness I have more than 2 hands. If something should happen, I have my friends who said everything for me when my voice disappeared for 2 months. My friends, my perfect friends, tiny patanga of kindness who have the doctor's phone number and mommy's phone number and an elegy for each of my missing ribs. When I am swollen with fever, they bring me ice and a tangerine. They seal my nostrils so my mouth is new and vacuous. Gentle as a shiver, they send the medicine down my throat. This time, I am opening my mouth. This time, I share my burden, and love is listening. This time I say, this body has failed me. I am in need. Bury your heart next to mine, so it is the only thing I can hear. Oshun. If I were an Orisha, I would have gone mad with grief. My white dress would turn yellow this time tomorrow if I cried hard enough. I can cry hard enough. I have cried hard enough. I know this always happens. This is what's supposed to happen. You turn into water. You become a river. It is not magic. Death has a part in everything. If I were an Orisha, no one would go mad with grief. This time tomorrow, grief will not be a part of everything. Thank you.
He is a very special kid. Oh, it's a very special man. But every time he reads, something inside me just goes grrr. I can't even explain it. His book is called In the Nude. You can get it in the bookstore. I think it's time we listen to a queen. And I'm going to invite TJ Dema.
Good evening. I'll just keep my eye on Lola. She said to me 6 minutes, but she'll just cue me if she needs me to get off the stage. 1, Shibboleth. What trap awaits us, I think I know. You cannot have one without the other. Belonging creates unbelonging. And so much seems intent on separation. Somewhere between body and blood, something remains as a good fence or color at the shaver's sink. My father's face, unshaven, all these weeks at sea, shifts the bodies of posture, the way you lean a face over seething water to sweat the sick out of you. This is for the devout drowned whose tongues lick tangled seaweed, who rise beautiful from some ocean floor with the wakefulness of a clean face, the soused in white, wet robes when everywhere else is the River Jordan. Before we pull any or all 880 out of the sea, they must say water. Swallow the slosh of a soft R, the imagined ridge of a letter D in place of the water's dry T. 1, 2, mutineer. I have been spotted spreading one leg toward the light, so they come for me. While I am naked as desert sand, wet behind ear, I am rain between thighs, I am forest growing everything anew. I am sand slipping away the fullness of youth. I have grown gills in the name of a storm coming. 1, 2, 3, Ovaria. Women know that sometimes there is blood, but not death. They learn to conceal the womb with breasts, to choose that which can be lost, the hopeful recipe of a constant cake in cupboard, to empty their cup and to be content with utterly nothing. I think this will be my final poem. 4, apoptosis. It begins with an epigraph from Rita Dove. She says, "It seems that I have always sat here watching men like you. Better than the telling was how nothing different happened. I watched the men at dawn and at sunset. They came in, voices hacking against the night, none of them accepting the hot bath the women prepared. The women prepared it carefully anyway. No thought for the early walk to fetch water, nor the back's quiet ache after years and years of babies and a heavy bucket drooling on the head, the tap, a small stick in the horizon. And they were happy, or so it seemed sometimes, singing while they gathered motswere for fire in the woods, collecting dry cow dung to fashion mud bricks, and glad to do it while the men were gone doing God knows what. And sometimes there was money, but most times there was the women laying stooks heavy as their husbands by hand, and before the reaping their spare figures, cheap scarecrows chasing kalea in the light, arms collapsing after a day spent between the infant and what the infant or the bird would eat." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, TJ. Do you know, I just want you to forgive me. I really want to thank some people that work at Sterling who really supported me. Dakbo, Daphne, Chidima, CY, and so many others who have just been there for the last four days. And it slipped my mind. Can you please just give them a round of applause for me? Thank you, so many of them. So I'm gonna move on quickly. We're gonna go to Canada, which is where my people want to go. If you look at Twitter, it's like we all want Canadian visas. Most of us anyway. Join me in welcoming Tanya Evanson.
Good evening. This is dedicated to anyone who has ever cared for a parent who was ill. Physiology flutter, atrial fibrillation, brother. Repetition rhythms, extra beats, we all have it. We all have it. I seen my father's heart green on a black ultrasound screen. He'd been up to Montreal from his girlfriend Caribbean. He crossed the Quebec hospital cystine system and still sick of it. Dad's knee tried to get itself together in the thick of it. Stiff knee swollen, broke, but it was the heart that needed attention. As oldest child in the family, I was given dervish duties in the temple, and training began in the kitchen. Meditating on knee for days. Food was brought, requests were made to relieve the bowels. Clean it, cook it, move it, doctor, pray, wash, sweep, repeat. Clean it, cook it, move it, doctor. Pray, wash, sweep, repeat. Physiology flutter, atrial fibrillation, brother. Repetition rhythms, extra beats, we all have it. We all have it. Now that day my father lay on his left side, shirtless, elbow to hand, hold head up, hospital bed. Ultrasound machine, running jelly clean across his black nativity chest. Dad, the doctor, was a very patient. But now cardiologist, brother, he'd jump a green screen and say, "Look at that heart valve. It open and close like a Mercedes-Benz sign." I said, "No, it's a vagina, yo." He said, "Oh, it's got extra beats though." What? Extra beats though? What? It's okay, every heart has extra heartbeats. Physiology flutter, atrial fibrillation, brother. Repetition rhythms, extra beats, we all have it. We all have it. 4 chambers in the heart, making chamber music, hit, hop, 2 atrial pump in, 2 ventricle out, simultaneous, left side separate from right. The 2 never communicate but to turn vascular music to life. Flight, wind, a wave, nothing constricts at once. The heart contracts and relaxes like a dog fist getting things done. Even from stem cells in a petri dish. Heart cells be on and on and on and on. Physiology flutter, atrial fibrillation, brother. Repetition rhythms, extra beats, we all have it. We all have it. We all have it. We all have it. My heart is the mud mosque at Janneh, beating for the universe itself. Every year the rains take it and faith alone rebuilds it. My heart is the pyramids of Kush and the entire complex of Giza and Teotihuacan and Angkor. What? My heart is the very Uluru, the original dome of the rock. And Mecca at Hajj is just us dancing around our own soft black stone. The Wailing Wall says, lean in and kiss me. Aqsa is a mountain gym, and the Ganges say, get naked and swim. Stonehenge says, look up at sky as I fly to you on island with your heart medicine in a box, Father. Physiology flutter, atrial fibrillation, brother. Repetition rhythms, extra beats, we all have it. We all have it. Out of all my temples on earth, visit my grave at Giza and ask for Mat, the mother of truth. She will weigh your heart against a feather. Father, physiology flutter, atrial fibrillation, brother. Repetition rhythms, extra beats, we all have it. We all have it. A repeat retreat to the most sacred point, 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 the heart, the heart. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I know our time is short, but I got the okay to share one piece. So that one was about my father, and this one is about women. The way we treat the planet, the way we treat women is how we treat the planet. We got to watch out. This is a poem about garbage, written on garbage. It's called Empty Empties. Now, doctors collect waste from the body. They cut it open at the front, back, sideways, and scoop out hard, fat spheres. You know, they send us to pathology to determine our exact toxicity, but how can anything in existence be inessential when opposites are all so true? But now garbage collectors, they collect waste from the street. They have excellent abdominals from crunching into piles of rock again and again and again. Push it from one place to another because nobody wants this gold. At the city treasure chest, we see the Pyramid Mount. This is our own future, but we don't want it. No matter how much our garbage grows. The meek shall gently scratch at that crust in what we think are faraway lands. You know, any downtown can be a disposable plastic latte. A feminist sometimes crash at a very desk from so much white, hot milk. Upon waking, she pushed her empty cup into a bigger cup, and at night, a browner woman empties the empties into a larger trophy, but you never feel like a winner. Because her circumstance is the definition of blues. Lucky there be television for bearability. In fact, I saw 5 fat televisions working the sidewalk in my neighborhood of Park X in Tiohtià:ke, Montreal, just the other day. No one wants them big anymore. Operational but thick is out of fashion. We put it out the curb and expect someone to take it. Oops, his boot kicked in the screen. No one's seen him treat her like trash. Anyway, he got a new flat top machine, and she worked good for a while. But then she turned 4-year-old and died too soon, too soon. Computer crash course 101. We renew, but there are fewer ways to enter her body now. That vagina machina sewn shut up in the East Cemetery. Now we got a stack of laptops, women with all the necessary holes, but no juice. We put atoms together that can never get loose. We fear the empty cell, the essence of our living. You know, I could go on and on about garbage, and in fact, I will. In the name of the removal of things, empties from empties, police bullets from black men, cancer from existence, violent spouses from the home, breasts from the bra, the self from social media, Israel from Palestine, corporations from all over. pimples and splinters and broad line lipoma, feet from high heels and all our plastic paraphernalia. I could go on and on about garbage, but in nature, there's no such thing. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Tanya. This is the, you know when we started this journey 2 years ago trying to get you here, we did it finally, right? And it's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. Next, Wana Udoba.
Good evening, everyone. So I have only 6 minutes. We were girls once, before our fathers were the first men to turn our hearts into pieces of splintered glass, before he left us, before he never came for us, before our uncles touched us, before the first time we said no, before the boys that pinned our bodies to the ground, before our skins were marked. You were a girl once. Before you learned to chew your tongue as your first solid meal, before you swallowed your voice, before anhedonia robbed you of breath, before joy curdled inside your belly, before you became your mother, before you bathed in her silence, before you became skilled at fear, before unrequited love, before the love that never stayed, before you stayed, before God told you to submit, before your skin grew its shell, before self-loathing, before everything was dead on arrival, before loneliness dragged itself across your chest to sit in your lungs, before the light went out in your eyes, before you mapped your way in the dark, before you learned to walk twice. We were girls once. Your mother says that you are spilling with guts. She kisses her teeth every time you sit, says you spread and sink into the living room couch, says your back has no arc and your bum has no bounce. Every time she sees you, her voice is thickened with anger because you fail miserably at this kind of self-sculpting. You are painted in your father's skin. You wear his frugal hands and slip right into his flat feet. This is why she sends you a care package of creams, teas, and potions in between. You see, your mother is doused in lemon cream. She's burning on both cheeks. Her hips are stuffed in girdles. She's crackling at the seams. Her blood is a cocktail of diets and diuretics. This is why she soaks your breakfast in chilies. Says the heat will purge you of your ugliness. Since your body is twice this size, she gives you a double dose of everything, including her regrets. When you become a woman, you'll forget how many abortions spilled from between your thighs. You'll forget the number of boys you let climb over you just because they called you beautiful. When you become a woman, you will have conversations with your mother. Tell her how all the women inside of you will never match up to the daughter in her head. Tell her how you tiptoe till you tippled from your own inadequacy. You will tell her that when your body became anesthetized by expectations, it was easy to consider your veins as tightropes. And then she will tell you how she strung amulets around her waist, burned candles, kept vigil, bathed her ears, drenched her pillows in anointing oil, how she did everything not to become her own mother. And you will read about epigenetics. Discover that your mother's trauma could bury itself inside your marrow without altering your bones. When you become a woman, your body will become an archive of memories. Your body will become a landmine of loss. You will become a dirge. You will wonder where beginnings stop and end. When you become a woman, your mother will tell you about how she mutilated her body, splayed each part to be sanctified by the sun so that your father could love her. When you become a woman, you will learn that the easiest person to forgive will be your mother. When I was a little girl, my mother would mix a bucket of dough into the night. Now, rising to twice the size of a forgotten dream, she would squeeze each ball into the searing heat because this was what it took to put clothes on our backs and books in our bags. My mother would never let her children out with an empty stomach. I'm a woman now, and I know that I'm my mother's daughter, learning courage through her blistered hands and knowing fearlessness in the lines of her smiling face. Sometimes we barter in silence like people do secret handshakes. She recalls the woman who hawked the clothes off her back to keep me here, and I recall the little girl trapped between a shop floor and a tuition payment, too far away from home to know if I would ever make it. But somewhere between our silence and the humming generator, my mother whispers, "We made it." You are the unanswered dream you have been waiting for. You are the rebirth to your shrunken spirit. You are liquid gold and fairy dust. You are DNA, a tapestry of miracle, myth, and magic. You're punching between ideas and dreams. You are connecting galaxies. You are weaving planets. You are multitasking. You are the inheritance of greatness. You are the blessing of your mother's tongue. You carry the universe in the chamber of your chest. You were made to walk on water. And so if they ever tell you that this revolution will not be televised, tell them that you stood at the foot of your ancestors calling your bodies back from the dead. Tell them that you are your grandmother's buried bones, and tell them that you have unknotted the silence binding your throats. Tell them that you are writing your memoirs in real time. And so if they ever tell you that this revolution will not be televised, tell them that you are the revolution.
I love you, Anna. Thank you so much. Anna is one of my favorite people in the world. Always stands by me, always supports me, and you know, Anna and a few other people. I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you did at the opening. Thank you very much, but never do it again. Dami Ajayi.
Good evening, Lagos. You should answer me. I'm not one of you again. No. So, a lot of ancestors, a lot of our friends have joined, or a lot of our elders have joined the ancestors this year. We lost Ifeanyi Menkiti. We lost Pius Adesomi on my birthday. We lost Biavanga Wainaina. And of all these people, I'm sure you do not know Ifeanyi Menkiti. Ifeanyi Menkiti was a philosopher and poet, and I'm just going to share one of his poems with you. And if there's enough time, I may read one of mine. So this is from Bright Light. A bow that is tightly drawn, and in the chest of the horseman drawing the bow, a tightness he did not know was there. And you ask, what is the measure of our aims? The acts that our aims accomplish, or the thing inside each of us that is the source of our aimings. A man may be a woman who does not have an answer to the question. It is all right for the man or woman not to have an answer to the question. It is all right for the man or woman to still lay claim to the world. And as to your question, why poets feel they can say the same things two different ways, let it be remembered that this is a question. It is not legitimate to ask, even though some may find legitimacy in the asking of it. And while the earth, as you're supposed to fall out of its orbit, there will be no place for it to hide. For the space between the words, it is there for all to see. The world and its mystery swirling can only hide so much from both of us. A sun, which is our neighbor, and another which our neighbor is, and who knows what light each from the other casts? Is this then the basis of our genuflection, the basis of our walking proud? Maybe the basis is not for you or for me to decipher, but for you and for me to remember not to forget. An old man from Africa praying, may speech not choke us, but be our companion now and in the future. And so a toast to Altair the bright light, and the body of Aquila the eagle, to Deneb the tall light, in Synagos the swan. Regulus and Arcturus, they were guarding their homes. Milosevic of Serbia, he too was guarding his home. He too was wearing some Panzer boots. Call home all you that are troubled. You'll find more trouble there. The earth is where we live. The earth, it is the only place we may call home. Thank you. Okay, so this is my own now. Anatomy of silence. What do I accept from this silence? The silence that lacerates peace. The silence anathema to bliss. The silence frenzied like an addict, deluded about cocaines and clouds. This silence pensive, dramatic, amping tension, ranking intention. This silence violent and vicarious. This silence between two lovers and two phones. This silence seems to say something. My bunny ears cocked at the angle of a murderer's gun. I can't hear you, I can't hear, I can't. I listen for silence, the rub of nappy ear on metal, the rub of stringy beard on brass. I listen beyond this silence to the tragic music of indifference. If victory invites ululation, why must silence seek its own company? If I know comfy silence, plush like Persian rugs and burgundy Ottomans, silence cut with the finesse of affluence, silence that accounts for itself, silence that touches itself. I know postcoital silence, spent bodies in repose, the plop of a weary heart, buried so far deep in a rack of rib cages. I know the silence of old couples, sashaying in the wind, cloth hems fluttering, holding hands and each other's lives with a gentle grip, calcified by church blessings and offsprings. I know the silence of flailing love, its complacency trudging with eggshell caution. I know the silence of sibling rivalry, knotted by mother's love and cord blood. I know the silence that precedes sleep, the deep into unconsciousness, neurons decelerating, activating dreams and slow waves. I've learned the lofty lesson of silence and its kinship with patience. The gap between two songs on the playlist is silence. The lacuna between two rising voices is silence. The response to unrequited love is silence. A mother's call of an errant child demands silence. The gaps between prayers is silence. The hallmark of a graveyard is silence. And the nature of silence itself is stillness. Tell the tranquil water about silence. Tell the aftermath of a reverberating echo about silence. Tell silence about silence, and silence will be its response. But where do I hold this silence? How do I fold it into a flotilla of origamis coasting on the bayou? This silence, vibrant and elusive, it begs to be accepted. But how do I accept this silence? Thank you.